So I want to go through sort of the differences that I noticed in practice, kind of like just bullet by bullet, and you can kind of react to them as we go. And the first one was I was standing there talking to some folks inside the organization watching stretching. And stretching seems like a stupid thing to observe, but I think you've been talking a lot about for a long time, sort of progressing the organization forward into the 21st century from a modernization standpoint. And I was talking with somebody who's been in the organization a very, very long time. And I was like, do you like this guy, Zach Woodfin, is leading stretching in a very concerted, direct, and loud yelling sort of very specific way. There's 2 or 3 other people out there working with all the different lines of players. And I asked this as person, I said, hey, this is far different than before, correct? Like I'm not making this up, that this is a new element to what the team is doing. And the person said, yeah, there were times where only 2 people were on staff running this department, and now we have 6. And so I think just we heard Zach Woodfin talk on Thursday last week about all the different, analytics and hamstring balance and all this other stuff, but just watching him actually physically work with the players in a way more hands-on way to open up practice was just one observation to start. And people in the building are like, yeah, this is new. This is very new. So
did and maybe I just never thought about it because nobody ever talks about the stretching portion unless like, oh, so and so's not here and stuff. Was I guess the guy that he replaced was it Piriano or whatever? Did he lead stretches or did one of his lackeys do it?
So I don't. That's why I asked somebody, because I don't remember. Because again, to your point, like who pays attention to fucking stretching? And so that's why I asked. I said this doesn't seem the same as the last regime, right? And they were like, no, this is totally different. So it does feel like there's a bit more of an organizational structure around this part of the team, which is dietary, strength and conditioning, nutrition, injury management, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like there's more structure there, more size and scope, and then there's more hands-on. Now, that, to be fair, I'll be interested to see if that's the case with the adults, with the real team, when the real team comes in camp opens in July. They've already said, hey, we're going to have to work with these guys who already have their own individualized plans in the offseason. This was, I think, more of rookie orientation kind of behavior, if that makes sense.
Well, it kind of ties into, right, the stuff that Brian Callahan talked about on the presser on Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, where he was talking about easing them in, making sure that they kind of they started learning the ropes, right? It's a lot less of, hey, you're a man now. Welcome to the NFL. Just do as I say and you'll be fine. And this is a lot more kind of like, okay, we're going to ease you into the NFL process. We understand that you're not ready. Here's how practice typically runs. It's your first day. Here's the flow, the schedule, what to expect. And I think it's really interesting with Woodfin that he seems to be pretty front and center, which is that it's in and of itself, despite what was going on, maybe in stretching portions or whatever, in and of itself, him being a vocal presence enough to where people are commenting about him being available to talk to the media is just another, neon green sign that says, hey, we are doing things way differently. And this is not just a knock on Vrabel. This is something I feel like that is way differently than all the way back to Jeff Fisher. This seems like an entire, and of course, obviously, Jeff Fisher, Ken Wisenhunt, Mike Munchak, those are like decades ago, at this point. But it is still new for the Tennessee Titans, who have been 25 years behind every other franchise. So it's just a refreshing change of pace. There's other stuff that we could talk about that we are going to talk about, but there's a lot of tangible evidence that is this team is just going to run and function differently than what we've ever seen before.
Yep.
Does that yield the same, worse, or better results? We'll see. But at least we don't have the complaint or don't have they're just doing the same old thing. And I feel like this is just one of the main examples from rookie minicamp that shows that this isn't going to be the same old thing, despite what people may think.
I'm gonna I was gonna go sort of chronologically here through the practice with observations, but I want to, because the very next thing I noticed was a Jaquan Jackson moment, but I want to use that to sort of segue into players a little bit later on. One quick observation is Brian Callahan is just not the same presence at practice that Mike Vrabel is. Now I don't know if that's just personality. Like I always thought Vrabel was hilarious, like that you could hear the giant F bombs across the field, and like it's just he's a bigger than life guy, literally, physically, coaching, whatever. And Brian just doesn't, like, you have to like look. You'd be like, where is he? What group is he with? Where's he at? It's just hard to find him. And so that's just a small difference, but that's all kind of baked into their two personalities. Obviously, we've already had a lot of conversations with other folks. And I know Easton's in the comments here, but Easton talked a lot about this as well. And most folks have talked about this. But just watching, so I immediately kind of walked over. Everybody headed over to watch the defensive and the offensive lines who were kind of next to each other. And, this is not revolutionary here. This is master of the obvious stuff because he is a former head coach and good enough to be an NFL head coach. But Bill Callahan's, my first thought is I walked over to the area and I looked at TD and I was like, literally all of this equipment is new, right? Like, is there a single piece of equipment here? There's probably 15 or 20 pieces of equipment out there for offensive and defensive linemen. And I said, is there a single thing that's out here that you can say was here before? And we kind of looked around for a second and he was like, I don't think so. And I was like, this is all the stuff he's designed, right? And he goes, yeah. So it is all his stuff, but the real takeaway is it's all new, number one. And number two, which to be expected. But number two, it's just so much fun to watch him like work on hand placement, to teach balance, to teach how to use this equipment, to see him like how direct he is with the communication style to the players. Hey, great rep. Hey, bad rep. Like, hey, get back in there. It's just, hey, get your hands down lower, JC. Like, it's just ball. And partly I just enjoy that nerdy stuff. And so it's just fun to sit there and watch him work because this is clearly a craftsman. He is this is like a guy who's been brewing beer for like 50 years. It's like, nope, the hops have been in there too long. And he's just a craftsman, and it's super fun and super interesting to watch him like really get into the weeds on how to play the position and to use all this equipment that he's created. It was just a lot of fun, and I just thoroughly enjoy watching him communicate with JC Latham and the other guys.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if it was a Freudian slip by Kayla, but she says here's like a clip of Bill Callahan actually teaching. And she used the phrase actually teaching. It may have been actually coaching, but she used the phrase actually, which just,
people took it the wrong way. Yeah.
Well, it's the right way to take it because there is an actual offensive line coach now. I mean, they didn't have one last year.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Say what you want about you can say what you want about Keith Carter. He had ups and downs, but he carried over his bad practice habits and alienating players up to the Jets. So, I'm just I do think that I look at it this way. I love that Brian's dad is living up to the billing of what he is supposed to be. And you guys are seeing what makes him a long tenured, well-respected offensive line coach. I don't know if you read it today, but Justin Mello has an interview out today over at BroadwaySportsMedia.com where he's interviewing the offensive line coach at IMG that worked with JC Latham that helped him transition from defense to offense and all that kind of stuff. And he said that because he's got a little bit of experience dealing with he's been to a bunch of Bill Callahan, summits. And he knows a lot about Bill Callahan. They missed each other when he was a player, the coach was, and Bill Callahan, Brian's dad, was in coming to, I think, Dallas at the time or maybe Philadelphia, but they just missed each other. And he says that there's nobody, like if I could handpick this is pretty much what he said. If I could handpick the coach to take JC Latham, right, and turn him into the next great offensive lineman, it is Bill Callahan. And think of the last time that you saw bad offensive line play and Bill Callahan, right? Think of the last time you heard a bad offensive lineman and Bill Callahan. And to me, I mean, this respect, these stories, these words that you hear, these things that he's doing, the stuff that he is building and designing and all this stuff, right? We've heard all of these great things. And there are still people who underestimate what he is able to do with even the most base bad offensive linemen. And the more that we hear, the more that we see, And I'm going to be so interested and tuned in to what you guys see at training camp and all that kind of stuff with the right side of the line, NPF in particular. I don't know. Like, I mean, like we said, if you can take a bad player and turn him average, that is so much better for this offensive line. And that's been the key issue. But the stuff that you're seeing that he's done with the rookies that you guys got to see firsthand, that we saw on secondhand on Twitter and Facebook and all this stuff, it's tangible evidence of what everybody is saying and why everybody's been so excited and demanding and wanting Brian Callahan to hire to begin with. So you get Bill Callahan. And I'm in. Like I'm bought into this offensive line, no matter who is playing in at right tackle. I'm bought in on this offensive line, knowing that the way that he teaches is going to be so simple for the offensive lineman to understand, and it's going to be effective.
I tend to agree. I also think it's important to just acknowledge, because there's like J.C. Latham, and we're going to get to this in a minute, but J.C. Latham, one of the first drills he ever did as a professional was like terrible. He was terrible. But like, let's not overreact to any of this stuff, because they are children learning to become adult professionals. Not children, but like young adults learning to become adult professionals. And my expectations, we shouldn't overreact to Bill Callahan either, because my expectations are I want to see a guy who looks and carries himself like he was worthy of being a head coach and knows exactly what he's doing and is good enough to invent new equipment to coach the thing that he's being paid to coach, and to have control of everything, sort of be in command. And I saw all that stuff. So all it did was confirm all the stuff that, to your point, we kind of already know, but it doesn't mean it was less fun. Like, it was just enjoyable to watch. It's no different than watching like a great musician or, somebody that is very good at something and kind of just execute it. And you heard Latham talk about it after practice. He was like, man, I love the guy. He's great. Like, if it's a bad rep, I do the bad thing. If it's a good rep, he'll tell you, like, all right. It's great. And so that was one of the main observations. And not every coach has his gravitas. Like, I don't think Tracy Rocker has the same gravitas that Bill Callahan does. Like, he just doesn't. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, Tracy Rocker's never been a head coach in the NFL. So